I like fonts far more than I probably should. They're an integral part of modern life, and they can tell a lot about a person. They're a form of art, undoubtedly, and you can't tell me otherwise. So here we go, font tier list, why not? First up, Courier New. This is the iconic monospace font, and by that I mean a font where each character takes up the same amount of space. Trying to stretch each character into a uniform box can be tricky, but Courier New pulls it off spectacularly. The use of serifs, horizontal and vertical lines, as well as very large punctuation marks all help this font a lot and make it the quintessential monospace font in my mind. This one's an easy S tier. Roboto. This one's one of the more boring fonts on the list. Like, it's fine, it does its job, I can read it, but why would I use this over the default font? Nobody seeks out this font, it's only ever used out of personal preference, but I guess it's fine enough, so I put it in B tier. Century Gothic. Now this is what you call a stock standard sans serif. No embellishments, no personality, only geometric shapes. This one truly deserves the name Gothic. But it's kinda boring, and the only reason I use it is for some variety. C tier. Indie Flower. Get your pitchforks, cause I kinda like this font. It fits a niche and fits it well. When I want a font to resemble handwriting, this is the perfect font for the job. It's readable, it's got personality with the low-hanging hooks, and I think it deserves a spot in A tier. Don't judge me. Impact. Oof, overcompensating much? This font just looks cramped, and bolding it makes it nearly unreadable. This font's fine if you up the font size, and wouldn't you know it, the internet already did that. I'm sorry, you thought I wouldn't talk about this font's use in the early meme economy? Really? This font is historic. It's made a name for itself. When I say impact font meme, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It fits a niche, but that niche isn't really around anymore. Since it's so historic, I'll put it in B tier, but no higher. Amatic SC. Amatic, more like anemic. Just look at this nightmare. It's so thin, I'm surprised it hasn't fallen over and starved by now. In smaller font sizes, it's barely legible, and in larger ones, it just looks awkward. Add to that the fact that there's not really any capital letters, and this one goes right into F tier. Pinyin Script. Who in their right mind would use this abomination of a font? Cursive only works in real life because the letters are all connected, making it possible to write them without taking your pencil off the paper, but when typing, this just hurts my feelings. Oh, and whatever you do not italicize this font. It looks like it got hit by a hurricane. I guess if you want your font to look overly fancy, you could use this, but I'm putting it in D tier. Verdana. You know what this font reminds me of? Reading for hours on end, not knowing where I started, only knowing that which I am reading. Cause this is the font used by Archive of Our Own. For that, and the fact that it's a very attractive font, I'm putting it in A tier. Arial. Now we're getting into the default fonts. This one's the default for Google Docs, and guess what? I don't like this font. There's just something about the letters, they look too vertical, especially the ones that already have vertical lines in them. But all those misgivings don't outweigh the fact that this is the default for a reason. It does its job. I think I just don't like it because it has no personality to it. B tier. Times New Roman. Easiest S tier I've ever given out. This is the font people get when they want a serif. The style, the points, the sharpness to it all. This font is more Gothic than Century Gothic. Let me just say, there is a reason that this has become the standard for academic papers and official reports. Calibri. Another default font, and this time for Microsoft Word. And I like this one a lot better. It's much more rounded, much more comforting. And even though I don't use Microsoft Word that often, I still use this font a lot. Reminds me of Warm Campfire. A tier. Prxima Nova. Aside from having the coolest name ever, this font doesn't really have much to offer. Borrows a bit from Century Gothic, but makes some minor changes that I think improves the font a lot. Solid B tier. Comic Sans. Oh boy, I've been waiting for this one. This is one of the most despised fonts around, but it really doesn't deserve it. It's overused in everything from the funny meme skeleton to wine bottles, but that really isn't the fault of the font. If anything, it speaks to the strength of this font. Speaking in a vacuum, this is actually a good font, but the stigma surrounding it makes it impossible to judge fairly. I actually like Comic Sans, but I still cringe whenever I see it used. So for that, I'm putting it in the meme tier, off to the side. I'm not putting Impact there because Impact has the opposite problem. Impact is garbage, but I begrudgingly respect it. Comic Sans is great, but I can never respect it. Permanent Marker. Talk about a niche font. This one has a very small range of uses, and is really only used for when you want a handwritten font for a title. But if you want it to look a bit messy, for that use it's great. But that's really the only thing it's good for. And for that, it's going straight in C tier. Source Code Pro. While the title of this font seems a little arrogant, I actually really like this one. It's another monospace, so that's a plus, and it's a little more rounded than Courier New. This one isn't as iconic, so I can't put it in S tier, but it's an easy A tier. Lobster. Lobster is an interesting one because it's cursive, but it pulls it off a lot better than Pinyin Script. The slant is less extreme, the letters are thicker, and it's actually legible. I still wouldn't use this all that often, but it's still one of the better cursive fonts. B tier. Caveat. Caveat is the reason handwriting fonts have a bad name. Just look at this scrawling, scrawny, illegible mess. If I showed you just the N, would you even be able to tell what it is? D tier. Pacifico. Pacifico is unique among cursive fonts because it's slightly adaptive. When certain letters are next to one another, the symbols change in order to connect the letters better. I would say that this is the cream of the crop when it comes to cursive fonts, but in general it just looks too loopy. Nearly half the letters and characters end up looking similar because of this flaw, landing it squarely in C tier. Shadows into light. Same deal as Caveat. There's no reason to use this font over Indie Flower, but it's a bit more legible, so I'll put it in C tier. Oswald. I legit don't know what to say about Oswald. Looks kinda like Impact, but thinner. It's pretty vertical. It's basically bolded Arial. C tier. Man, a lot of these fonts are pretty average now. How about a change of pace? Press Start 2P. This font is absolutely horrendous. It may be monospace, but that's the only thing it has going for it. It's far too wide, the pixelization doesn't add anything, and the only situation where I would possibly use it is in a title. F tier. Bungee hairline. I have to bolt this font to even read it. That alone should tell you why it's going in F tier. At least the name's fitting. Ewart. Now this is some stylization I can get behind. Ewart may not have any capital letters, and it may seem a bit hollow, but it just exudes an old printing press style that lands in an easy A tier. Alerta Stencil. This font's fine. It's pretty standard when you get down to it. It looks like it's bolded by default. The whole stencil aesthetic doesn't really help it in any way. I feel like this one goes in D tier. Black Ops 1. Yeah, they made a font around Call of Duty and put it in Google Docs. What a world we live in. However, I think this one works a lot better with the stencil aesthetic, what with COD being all about military and such. The wider letters contribute to nailing the aesthetic as well. However, I just don't see myself using it a lot, so I put it in B tier. Architect's Daughter. Now this is a handwriting font I can get behind. It's the cleanest one yet, doesn't throw any curveballs at you, its style is nice and consistent. This is by far the best handwriting font. S tier. Bungee Outline. Hey, did you want Bungee Hairline but worse? Hey, I've got the font for you. This is all the problems with the other Bungee fonts, but looks terrible even when it's bolded. F tier. Bungee Inline. Alright, this one's actually okay. If you're gonna use Bungee, use this or the original. For large titles, these are an alright choice. The diagonals give it some personality at least. Both of them go in B tier. Bungee Shade.